Welcome to the 3 over 2. I'm Joe Fortunato, and as always, I'm joined here with Chris Grieve. What's going on?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. We actually went to a basketball game this week, so we got to see our first game of the year. Yesterday, we went to the Sixers Pistons game, and normally we're given our perspectives just from watching it on TV or seeing highlights, but it's kind of different. We got to see the game in person, so I'll start. Joe, what did you think of the game yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was a good game. I had a feeling Detroit wasn't going to last with us. Young team, don't really have the guys that'll hit the shots down the stretch, things like that. But Sadiq Bey was impressive. But I was really impressed with a lot of Sixers. I mean, obviously Embiid did Embiid things, but I thought Maxey was really good last night.
Yeah, Maxey did play really good, and I thought it was an all-around team win for the Sixers. I mean, of course, Embiid kind of carried, but all the role players stepped up, with exception to Danny Green. That would be the one player that I was disappointed with yesterday. He just kind of was running around doing nothing. Looks exhausted on the court. That's one thing I noticed in person. Danny Green had his hands on his knees the whole time. You could
Hmm.
tell. Like you could tell when a player's out of breath just by looking at them. That looked like Danny Green yesterday, not giving the same defensive effort. And then another game with 0 points. I think you said before the show, was it 3 games this year with 0 points?
Yeah, I know it's at least two, but I believe that is his third game where he scored donut.
That's a huge concern for me with the Sixers. You
Right.
need to get production out of Danny Green, and it looks like he might have regressed a bit.
Yeah, I don't really know what my expectations were for Danny Green, but they're not being reached.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean I didn't expect Danny Green to even average 12, but I thought he'd be contributing a lot more than what he is now.
And he's a starter, so he has to at
Exactly.
least give some
There's
production.
no excuse for 0 points if you're in the starting lineup playing
No, no, not at
25
all.
plus minutes.
It just seems like he's just out there right now.
And he's known for his corner threes and his shots,
They
and
were off.
he airballed one yesterday. He just looks off. I'm glad you brought up that he looked tired because I did see that as well. He definitely was tired. And he's also known for his defense, and I didn't see anything impressive. I saw
No.
Sadiq Bey cook, get some buckets on us. That's all I saw.
Yeah, that reminded me. Another thing I noticed at the game too. After the Pistons started to make a comeback towards the end of it, and Sadiq Bey hit a corner three where Danny Green was not in the right spot. He got there late. Doc immediately calls a timeout, and he just started going after Danny Green. Was yelling at him, cursing at him. The whole team then met up in a huddle, and Doc walked away. He was really upset. And I never really see that out of him get that frustrated. So is it possible that Danny Green falls out of the starting lineup at some point this year?
Very possible. And I think his replacement is Matisse Thybulle because of the fact that Danny Green's known for that defense, and he's just not bringing it.
Yeah.
Then you got a younger guy like Thibault, great shape, great basketball shape, can run up and down the floor for 40 minutes if he has to. Yeah, the offense is definitely lacking with Matisse Thybulle, but I still think he's a better starting option than Danny Green right now. And with Danny Green coming off the bench, if he's gassed, if he's not in basketball shape, I think that's a better opportunity for him.
I agree that that's a good opportunity too. And with how good Seth Curry's been playing, he also had another good game yesterday. And all this year, Seth Curry's really impressed me.
Yeah.
You have that shooter in your lineup. If Ben Simmons isn't there, then you have Maxey and Seth Curry, who are good enough offensive players that you can afford to put a Matisse Thybulle in your lineup, just a guy who's pure defense.
Yeah, let me ask you this. How much are you missing Ben Simmons right now from a Sixers fan standpoint?
I'm saying I'm like in the middle.
Okay.
It feels weird not having him there, but I don't know if the team's missing him significantly yet. We haven't really ran into a super hard challenge or a long stretch where I'm like Tyrese Maxey can't be the guy. We need Ben Simmons back, but right now it's still so early that I feel like we're okay for now.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I don't think we've faced any crazy good teams where we're just like, dang, we need Ben. I mean, the Knicks are really good right now. And
Yeah.
Ben Simmons has still never lost to the Knicks in
Yeah,
his
it'd be
NBA
nice to have
career.
him back for
Yeah,
when we play them because they're the current number one seed right now.
they are.
And that looks like a team that likely we'll have to go through in the playoffs. Probably a second round matchup, I'd say, or
Yeah. I,
depending on what the seeds shake up to be.
yeah, as a fan right now of Philly, I'm just trying to take it game by game because I really don't know what to expect from us.
That's how I am too. I'm happy to see the wins when we get them, but I'm not thinking about the playoffs yet.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to get there.
we got to get to All Star break, finishing top five, and then carry over from All Star break and finish top five.
I definitely agree.
So that kind of gives us a good way to transition into the week recap. We've seen a couple weeks of basketball now. There's been some players that have been really impressive, some teams that have taken leaps beyond our predictions, and there's been some really disappointing teams. So we'll bring up some players here and there. The first player I want to talk about is Miles Bridges.
Yeah, he's been going crazy lately. I saw
Super impressive.
for a bit he was averaging 30 points a game and had almost 30 every game he's been playing.
I think his lowest points this season were 25.
And that's ridiculous because he's not a player that averages 25.
He's
even.
not a
Not
player,
even close.
not even a player that averages 20.
Yeah.
But I saw something that was kind of interesting. He turned down a $60 million contract extension.
So maybe that's motivating him to play better here and put up these numbers.
With the numbers he's putting up, he could get 100 million plus
Yeah.
easily.
Well, that's a good example of betting on yourself and it working there with Bridges because
For sure.
if he keeps this up, he is going to get paid way more than that 60 million.
Yeah. Do I think Miles Bridges is going to average over 25 for the year? I don't think so. But I do think he's going to be in that 22, 23 point per game ballpark.
Which that's enough to win Most Improved Player easily.
And get that big contract.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll continue to see that happening, and I think a lot of it. He has such good chemistry with LaMelo.
Oh, I love it. I mean, we talked about it last week. They're such an entertaining team.
Yeah, and I think LaMelo's going to continue to feed him and find opportunities for him. He just makes the players around him so much better.
I agree. And just a little bit more about Bridges. This is a way too early prediction, but do you think he could be an all-star this year?
All-Star might be a bit hard. He might be. I'm thinking if he is, he's one of the 12, like the 12th player
Or a reserve.
or a reserve. He's one of the last few that makes it. So kind of depending on injuries and where it's at. This is just saying like if he keeps up a little bit of what he's doing now, or is in that
Right.
22 points per game ballpark, then I could see him being like a reserve. But for now, I'm going to say no. I think more realistically, you could look at him winning Most Improved Player or something along those lines instead.
Yeah, I could see it. But as far as the All-Star goes, I think I agree with you. But I could imagine a couple people in the East, injured with COVID still around. Can't
Any of the Nets
participate.
players.
Yeah, any Nets player, any Sixer that has knees on their body.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Bridges be an all-star. I just hope he keeps this up because I want to see the Hornets win.
Definitely. Well, do you think LaMelo could be an all-star too?
100%.
I think they might go LaMelo first before Bridges, but
Agree. Yeah.
if they're really good, who says they can't get two?
Yeah. The Jazz last year, they had
Three.
Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and Mike Conley. And Mike
Yeah.
Conley was like a reserve of a reserve of a reserve, but he was still an all-star.
Yeah, it still counts. People won't remember.
No, they won't. They'll see the lineup and just say, hey, Mike Conley was an all-star.
Yeah, which I was so glad to see last year.
He deserved it when he was in Memphis for sure.
Yeah,
When
he
they
was
were-
snubbed for years.
Yeah, when they were that, grit and grind team, Zach Randolph, those guys, I think Mike Conley definitely got snubbed.
Oh, for sure. He did get snubbed then. So another thing we wanted to bring up today was we wanted to go into some early season awards, basically. So what we did for this, we weren't going to give out MVP and stuff just yet because it's only been a couple of weeks. So the way we wanted to do this was we wanted to do all NBA teams, and we're not going to just go position by position like the actual all NBA is. We're going to just give 5 guys who we are most impressed with this year and think have been the 5 best players so far. So I'll start us off with one. I said Ja Morant as my first player on my all NBA team so far this year. Ja's just been so good. He's exciting to watch on the court, scoring 40 points here, almost beat the Lakers in that one game. I just love what I'm seeing from John. It looks like he's for sure an all-star lock and really one of the best players in the game right now.
Yeah, Ja Morant's been extremely impressive because he's shooting the ball and he's shooting it at will and shooting good shooting splits. Like, it's all that you want from Ja Morant and a point guard in general. His playmaking definitely took leaps. And yeah, they almost beat the Lakers. He did miss that free throw to tie up the game, which was tough. But I agree with that pick. My first pick on my list is LaMelo Ball, and I just think LeVar Ball was right all along. He was telling us my kids are gonna be, the best point guards in the NBA, stuff like that. And as of a couple of games ago, obviously we saw last night the Bulls lost to the Knicks, but the Bulls and the Hornets were number 1 and 2 in the East for a certain point in time, and Lonzo and LaMelo both playing great basketball. But LaMelo's my pick because he's showed that he can shoot with that awkward jump shot. He's obviously a playmaker that's probably a generational talent as far as playmaking goes, and he's really showing it this year.
I agree with what you said about generational talent as far as a playmaker. He's got to be top three in the game right now, just
Yeah.
playmaking and creating for his teammates. I can't give you the full three off the top of my head, but I think he's up in that list as one of the best playmakers in the NBA and one of the best I've seen in my lifetime, which is crazy for someone that young that we're already given the praise for this. And the way he just elevates his teammates, it's unmatched.
Yeah, it's really, I think his playmaking reminds me a lot of Chris Paul, and the way he elevates people reminds me a lot of LeBron, who would probably be my number 1 and 2 as far as playmakers in the NBA go right now.
Yeah, it's possible. And I don't think he gets the credit for it around the league yet.
He definitely gets the credit.
It depends. Some people are so strong on hating on him because of LeVar Ball and how big he was in high school.
Yeah.
And then others like bought into it all and love it. So he's one of those ones where there's no in between. Some people hate him and some people love
The
him.
only reason why I say that is because of Bleacher Report and House of
Oh, well, yeah,
Highlights.
they post
Every pass he makes
nonstop.
gets posted, but yeah, other than that, I think you're right. I think people are either all for LaMelo or all against LaMelo.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess my next player on the All NBA team, this one's with no surprise, Steph Curry.
Yeah.
He's improved this year. He's been playing super efficient so far, getting rebounds too. He's doing all the little things that normally Steph Curry doesn't do. I know yesterday, another game where he's just making ridiculous 3-point shots. We mentioned earlier, he made a floater on one leg yesterday. Just
From well beyond the 3-point arc.
he's doing crazy things. And then that battle he had with Paul George a couple of games ago where he was just pulling up from deep on him. And Steph Curry's been fun to watch, and it looks like he's only gotten better.
Yeah. Steph, like we said a couple episodes, I believe at this point, we were talking about how this might be the most influence he's had on the offense in his whole career. And again, that's crazy to think about considering all the success they had, that 73-9 team. But right now, they want Steph Curry to shoot 23s a game. And he did that last night. He shot 7 for 20 from three, which when you look at it, you're kind of like, oh, that's not that good. But 7 for 20 from three is not that bad.
That's not bad at all. Another thing that I noticed, I was looking at the stats for Curry. He's averaging 8 rebounds a game and almost 7 assists a game right now, which 7 assists isn't his career high, but he hasn't done that in years, getting that many assists. And 8 rebounds by far a career high. He's on triple double watch every night.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I think the assists come with his role in the offense as well. Being he's going to get all that attention. He's going to cause double teams. And Steph's obviously one of the best basketball players ever. So he knows how to find that open man. He knows how to play make. And like you said, it seems like Steph is getting better every single year.
I did hear one thing that Steph Curry said, and he said over the offseason, he's been focusing on just making every single shot in practice, and he said this was the most focus he's ever had his offseason, where he locked himself in gyms and wouldn't let himself leave unless he made all his shots, which is crazy. Someone like Steph Curry, you don't think has to do that. He's fine as he is, but he's out there trying to improve and really focus, and he said it was the most focused offseason he's ever had as far as training.
Did you see what his trainer said?
No, what was that?
His trainer said, we don't count made baskets. We only count swishes.
That's
Because
insane.
because a made basket for Steph is not a good shot anymore.
No, I agree. It really isn't.
So JJ Redick talked about that on his podcast with Tyrese Halliburton and Davion Mitchell on it. And he was asking them, how would you feel if your trainer was just like, only swishes count? And Tyrese Halliburton was just like, I absolutely hate that because you're literally not getting rewarded for a make. But Steph is just so good.
Yeah, you have to find a way to elevate yourself when you're making every shot already.
Yeah, I think the problem is the running out of challenges shooting the ball for Steph, so he's
Yeah,
creating new ones.
that's I've never thought of that, but that's a smart idea for him to just be perfect. And Steph Curry is the most one of the most technically sound basketball players of all time and has been perfect his whole career pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll hop into a new player here that was on my early season All NBA team. I have Miles Bridges there.
That's the next one I had up was Miles Bridges also. We kind of talked about this a lot already, but yeah, Miles Bridges right now, it's early, but he's averaging 30 points a game and
Yeah, it's
you can't
impressive.
not put him on it.
It's impressive play, and again, a lot of this is overreactions or whatever, but we're just excited to see someone new step in and, you know, do all this work on a team that's trying to make this playoff run.
Yeah, I loved when making this list that we were able to put people on it that you normally don't see here, and we might not see at the end of the year. We probably aren't going to see Miles Bridges here. I
I can
highly doubt it.
I can almost guarantee you we don't see Miles Bridges here, but I would love to be wrong though. Like I want to see him on an All NBA team. I want to see him as an All Star.
It's
But
satisfying seeing players get significantly better, in my opinion. I just love seeing
yeah,
players take huge steps and get better in their game because Bridges has been in the league a few years now, and he's been a good player. He's been a role player. He might have been. I heard this debate before that he is one of the best role players in the NBA. People were debating if you could pick one role player, who would it be? And a lot of people said Miles Bridges for just having all the versatility he has and athleticism on the court. He kind of just plays his role. He doesn't have to be the star, but this year he stepped up and said, I can be more than a role player.
yeah, I agree. And he's gotten better and better each year of his career. And yeah, this is the biggest leap, obviously by far. But again, I do want to see him as an All Star, and I do hope I'm wrong because I want to see him as an All NBA player. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, definitely. And he's so young. So this improvement for him, hopefully it continues. I think it can, given that he's so young, which is weird with my next pick. This is a much older player, a player who's had a successful career so far, but has never been on a list like this as the top one of the top 5 players of the NBA. I'm going Harrison Barnes here. He's been having one of his best seasons ever. Just had a buzzer beater the other day. The Kings are playing decent. I like what Harrison Barnes is doing. We mentioned him on the first episode about how good, or on the second episode about how good he's been playing. He's continued it. He's been better since then.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. He's averaging 26.8 points per game, so he's sitting at that 27 point per game mark. He's lifting Sacramento to what the point where they're competing against all these good teams. They beat Portland early on in the year when Harrison Barnes had 40. It's just it's just impressive seeing these players jump to this early leap. And it's not like we haven't seen this before. We've seen players start out the season averaging this 30 points per game because at the end of the day, the max amount of games the team's played is 5. So the wear and tear that naturally comes with basketball is going to happen. You're going to see these numbers drop a little bit. But I'd like to see Harrison Barnes be that main scorer alongside De'Aaron Fox for the Kings.
Yeah, one thing that really stood out to me about Harrison Barnes, he's shooting 51% from three so far this year.
Wow.
Will that continue? Probably not. But Harrison Barnes, you think of him as probably one of the most average shooters. He's good all around shooting, but mainly just a corner specialist, just an average 3 point shooter in my opinion. But maybe now he's a lockdown shooter, and you know what Harrison Barnes brings, at least defensively, and as a guy that can pretty much any night get you 20. He's just a consistent player, but he's improved now and really improved his 3 point shot. So I hope to see that going forward. And I think he could be a player that's a huge trade deadline piece that gets moved to a contender. A lot of teams could use a player like Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, a guy who can get hot. That's what these contending teams are looking for. Say
Yeah.
KD has an off night, Harden's not doing too well. You got Harrison Barnes coming in and torching. So it's what they're looking for. is he going to be dealt? I mean, that's up to the Kings. The Kings are in a tough position as they've been for the past 15 years, but I'll move on to my last pick on my early season All NBA team. I was stuck between two players, and I'll tell you what the deciding factor was, and it was just rebounds, because the center I wanted to pick averages less rebounds than Stephen Curry. So
Uh,
I went with Rudy Gobert over Karl Anthony Towns. Rudy Gobert sitting at 18 and 18 a night, which is crazy. If he could up that to 20 points a night, 18 rebounds, I mean, we're talking MVP numbers alongside his blocks and stuff. But Karl Anthony Towns averaging 28 a night. It's awesome. I want to see Minnesota compete for a play in. I don't want to see them at the bottom of the conference like they've been the last couple of years. They have the talent, they have the star power. I want to see them do it, but at the end of the day, the rebound numbers is what took Cat off and put Gobert on for me.
I went with Rudy Gobert as my last player here too, and same thing as you said. I was thinking of him or Cat, and you can't ignore the stat line for Rudy Gobert. I don't like to base everything just off stats, but when you're averaging 18 and 18, you kind of got to give it to him.
And the
And you know his other impacts on defense and everything
yeah,
else too. He's been playing great.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is you know what Gobert brings to the table. You know what he does for Utah, and Utah wins a lot of games because Gobert is on the floor on the defensive side mostly, but also on the offensive side, he's grabbing some offensive rebounds. Finding the open man sometimes, but mostly he's like a lob threat. But that defensive impact is what propels Gobert into an all-star every year.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I feel like one thing with Gobert I've noticed over last few years of watching basketball, people never like him. He's always disrespected. I saw on Instagram, one of these NBA accounts did a post where they said they're kind of did what we're doing. They did their season awards so far and they gave it to Gobert, and the comments were ruthless to Gobert. Everyone was hating on him. I don't know why he still gets so much hate. He's a great player, but doesn't get appreciated by anyone.
Yeah, I didn't even see that post, but I can imagine what the comment section looked like. Talking about he's overpaid, talking about he only averages 18 points. I'm sure I know what majority of the comments were saying, or complaining about their favorite player being snubbed, obviously, like Derrick Rose. But other than that, Gobert deserves all the credit he gets. He's not overpaid, like statistically not overpaid. I'm not just saying that as an opinion. It's a fact. If you compare him to the people getting those contracts right now and what his impact is on the floor, it's identical.
Yeah, he's getting paid just what he should be, and it just annoys me. I think fans got to stop disrespecting Gobert. I don't love him as a player. I found him kind of annoying sometimes, but he's a great player. It's underrated. So, as we did our list, we also did some honorable mentions for this too. There's a lot of players I wanted to give shout outs for that have been playing great this year. I think one name that, probably should have made both of our lists, but we wanted to give more recognition to the players who've never done this before. But first off, I think Kevin Durant's been having a great year.
Yeah, KD's on my honorable mentions list. Obviously, he could have been here over Miles Bridges, but I picked Miles just because of the entertainment fact of it. I want to see someone new. KD's on
Definitely.
this all the time, and I'm sure KD will be All NBA first team most likely when the season's all wrapped up. But KD's been balling. The Nets are still trying to figure it out. What's going on with Kyrie? It's just a mystery that we as fans have no way of answering.
Yeah, and I think KD, we've talked about it on podcasts before, he's still playing in his prime right now. I don't think everyone realizes how good KD's been these last few years since coming off a really bad injury. He's still out there doing what he did on the Warriors and what he was doing on the Thunder at the same level. And he's kind of carrying them right now because I have been disappointed with James Harden.
Yeah, and what like you said, the injury, it's so impressive because when players tear their Achilles, we've seen in recent years DeMarcus Cousins go down and never be the same. Unfortunately, Kobe Bryant, when he tore his Achilles, he was never the same. And yeah, Kobe was a little older than what KD was when he tore it, but that injury is no joke. Like AC coming back from an ACL at this point seems kind of normal. Like players get back to where they are. They might lose a step at first, might take them a season to get back, but KD coming off an Achilles, I mean, it's just impressive that he's putting up 28, 29 a game.
Achilles might be the worst injury you could get as a basketball player too.
Yeah, I mean, Paul George's injury was pretty
Well,
crazy.
that's next level, but
That's
yeah.
like a freak injury.
I guess of the common injuries to get, common season-ending injuries, you don't want it to be the Achilles. That ends up being really bad and long setback there. So I'm impressed with Durant. He's not human the way he's came back from this.
Yeah, I agree. And next on my list, honorable mentions, I have Giannis. Obviously, just like KD, he could have been on this list. Giannis is averaging 27 points and 12 rebounds. I mean, the dude's an animal. We know this. We've seen it. We saw it all last playoff run. We've seen him hold up the trophy and, Finals MVP. Dude is just going to be so good for so long.
Yeah, Giannis definitely should have been on this list also, but we had to make room for other people. Everyone knows what Giannis is. That goes without saying. He's one of the best players in the NBA and's been playing as one of the top 5 players this year so far. One that I want to give a little more recognition to, which I also feel like sliding a little bit under the radar, but is one of those stars in the NBA. Jimmy Butler's been having a really good year so far with the Heat. He's kind of been the main guy there. He's doing a bit of everything. I liked last year what I saw with Jimmy Butler, being able to get triple doubles every night and be a playmaker for them, while also randomly having his 40-point nights. He's been doing that this year. He's pretty much consistently hovering around a triple double, being a huge playmaker on both sides of the ball, and then also has had a few games where he's went off and dropped 40 points. So Jimmy Butler, wanted to give him some love.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one I had as well in my honorable mentions. I think it's just because whatever Jimmy Butler does is not like highlight worthy. Like he's not going to dunk on people that often. He's not going to do all this stuff, but what he does is just gritty, and he just takes that passion he has, and you could tell he leaves it all out there, and now at this point in his career it's reflecting on his numbers.
I definitely agree with that. That was a great comparison because he isn't a guy that you'll ever see on Bleacher Report and House of Highlights. Unless he hits a buzzer beater or something or a clutch
Yeah.
shot. That's really the only way Jimmy Butler's getting on because he isn't a highlight type player, but he's just so good at everything and so skilled that he has to be on it.
Yeah, I agree. And my last honorable mention, I do want to mention that I had Karl Anthony Towns on this
Oh,
because
yeah.
of Gobert, but we already spoke about that. But my last would be Anthony Davis. I do think his play has been really impressive. He's been able to score. Um, he's been able to show that he can play the 5 this year if need be. They've had times where they've taken out DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard and just let AD be the only big guy out there, and he's been able to produce.
I think he needs to play the 5 for this team to be a championship contender. That's my big thing with AD, so I hope that that continues. But yeah, he's been playing really good this year. And in the few games I watched AD play so far, it seems like he is still a little bit afraid to go to the basket, but he doesn't need to because he's got such a good mid range game that I think gets underrated. And he's so good on his fadeaways, hook shots, so skilled, just, I guess, within 10 feet of the basket, not right under it, but he's good around the basket.
Yeah, and he's sitting around 2.5 blocks a game as well.
He looks great on defense. I
He
think he's a
does.
defensive player of the year
It's
candidate.
reminding me of a couple of years ago, Anthony Davis, when he was a Pelican. That's really what I'm seeing right now.
That's the Anthony Davis I want to see.
Yeah, me too.
I think he definitely took a step back last year, but we need to get him going, get him back to where he was for this Lakers team to be relevant this year. I had two more honorable mentions that I didn't get to say yet. First up is DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray, I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched him play yet. I haven't caught a Spurs game, but you look at the box scores. DeJounte Murray's triple double almost every single night, or at least if he's not, he's very close to it. A couple nights ago, he had a 15 assist game, which is crazy for him. I think he's might be the best top 4, top 3 rebounding point guards in the NBA with DeJounte, and that's a guy who I want to see. DeMar left the Spurs. I want to see DeJounte take over there and really prove that he's the star.
Yeah, pulling up his stats here, I mean, he is doing crazy numbers. We're talking 17 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. And we know he's doing things on the defensive end as well. He's averaging 2 steals a game, but his impact is obviously much more than just what the box scores are showing because the Spurs are competing every night.
Yeah, he's one of those players that does everything, and I I kind of love big point guards that can do everything. That's
Yeah,
one of my favorite play styles in the NBA. So I've always been a big DeJounte Murray fan, and right now I'm loving how he's playing. That's all star worthy right there.
yeah, and I want to see that out of Cade Cunningham. And as we're recording this episode, Cade Cunningham won't be playing until I believe tomorrow or Sunday. But I'm excited to see him do stuff like that because he's a big point guard.
Yeah, I hope I can see that too. I want Cade Cunningham to be sitting around there with a bunch of rebounds. Maybe like I don't know. What are your expectations for Cade Cunningham? I'm hoping to see maybe get at least 14 points a game this year, 5 rebounds, 5 to 6 assists. Is that unreasonable?
No, I think that might be a little under what I would say. I would say, like, yeah, 14, 15 point per game mark, but I could see him averaging 6, 7 rebounds, 6, 7 assists.
It's possible because he has that whole offense
He
to
has the
himself there.
he has the keys.
Yeah, and as we saw yesterday, watching the Pistons play in person, nobody impresses me on that team really. Sadiq Bey is a good player. I think Jeremy Grant puts up numbers there because there's nobody else, but Cade Cunningham's by far the best player on that team. As a rookie coming in, I think he's by far the best player, so he should be able to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, it's the Cade show.
I had one last player here for my honorable mentions. This guy has kind of been ignored in the NBA over the last few years because well, I'll just say the name, Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah, that's a great pick because he's playing so well for Washington right now, coming off the bench, putting up numbers, and now with Daniel Gafford being hurt, he stepped into the starting lineup. He went in, they won the game. He had like 23 points. He just looked good.
Yeah, what the point I was going to bring up with him was I was kind of losing my train of thought, but with the Lakers, he didn't play much last year. It was a weird departure with the Clippers, and a lot of people were mad at him, and he never really had the opportunity over the last couple years, and people forgot how good Montrez was. Goes to the goes to the Wizards now and has all the chances he could ask for, and's been really producing with it.
Yeah, I agree. He's taken this opportunity and he's taken this role, which is probably the most significant role he's had in his career so far, and he's putting up the numbers to show that he's ready for it.
Yeah, and that whole Wizards team so far right now, I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing from them. I think a lot of people have been stepping up there. Kyle Kuzma, same situation.
Yeah,
Kuzma's been decent so far.
and Kentavious Caldwell Pope.
Yeah, they're
He had
all
21.
all these Lakers players were hated on, and they kind of went to Washington where they're getting forgotten about there. It seems like the Lakers just shipped them off and were like, hope for the best with you. And then all of a sudden they come out and have been producing for them.
Yeah, totally. And another player that's been producing and taking advantage of his role that I just want to touch on real quick. He's not in my honorable mentions or on my All NBA team so far, but it's Jakob Pertl.
He has been, yeah.
He's been good. I think he's sitting around like 17 points, double digit rebounds, and he's helping out the Spurs. I really like that team, and it's kind of like I always kind of like the Spurs, not like as a fan of them, but just like okay, if the Spurs win, then all right, cool, that's cool. I like Pop, I like Tim Duncan when he was there, stuff like that. But that team with DeJounte, Keldon Johnson, and Jakob Pertl, like they're just fun to watch, and Lonnie Walker.
I agree. And I like how with the Spurs, they have this culture where guys just develop and get better every single year. And that's what we're seeing with Jakob and DeJounte Murray. They got significantly better in the offseason.
Yeah, and another thing about their culture, it's funny you said that, is just that they never have a player that like acts out a line or anything or posts anything crazy on social media. Like they're always this like well professional team, and it's kind of crazy. Like I wonder, Pop's approaching retirement here soon. I wonder once he's gone and whatever management's out of there, whatever they may do. I wonder if the Spurs are going to be like a high attraction team after or something like that.
I have no clue because their great players they've had have been the most low key All Stars ever, with
Yes.
Tim Duncan and Kawhi Leonard as probably the two notable ones you think of.
Yeah.
Those guys are the most quiet off the court players ever, and it's weird. You're finally starting to see Kawhi show personality this year, kind of with like the music video he did and all sorts of other stuff. He's a big rap producer
Yeah, he
now,
dropped an album.
which is just weird that Kawhi's doing all this. But I guess maybe it's he got hurt and he's like, I'm gonna show my personality finally. But the Spurs, they're weird. They keep their players kind of quiet. I don't know if that's the Spurs or it's just the type of players they draft. Maybe it's luck. I have no clue.
Yeah, I
But
think it's a little bit of both. It's
yeah,
pretty interesting. Yeah, welcome back. Just took a quick break. I'm Joe Fortunato. As always, I'm joined here with Chris Grieve. We're going to hop into our next segment here. We just wanted to talk about players that have been oddly disappointing this year.
yeah. This is kind of our what we did before we took the break with our all impressive team so far, all NBA team after a couple games. This is our all disappointment team. We're not doing this by position. We're just giving about 5 names that have really disappointed us so far. And of course, it's only been a week,
Yeah. And,
so a
and
little over a week.
just to clear the air, we're not hating on these players. We're not. Some of these players on here I really like, and I'm just disappointed, and that's all it is. And it's from a fan perspective. Obviously, there's more to basketball than what you do on the court sometimes, but there's more that happens off the court, things like that. But just their play we've seen through 4 or 5 games at this point, we've just been a little disappointed. And I'll kind of kick us off here, starting with James Harden. And James Harden's interesting because of the new rule that got implemented. He's shooting significantly less free throws. He's averaging a lot less points because of the lack of free throws. And he just looks kind of like he's learning how to play in the NBA again.
And I think he seems frustrated with it as well. He's not playing the same. He's trying to change his game too much, and he's getting mad when he's not getting these calls, and it's affecting him throughout the whole game. You can tell that it's a lingering problem with James Harden where he keeps getting frustrated and it's ongoing. I had James Harden on my list as well for one of them. And yeah, not a fan of how James Harden's been so far. Do I think he improves it? Probably, but this new rule change really seems like it was singling him out. And I know a reporter asked Steve Nash about it, and he said, I think that James Harden's the poster boy for this new rule change with the fouls. And they're looking at Harden. When he does what he normally does to create fouls, they're not giving it to him anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I do think he's the poster boy of it, and I think Trae Young had a big impact in that too, with Trae Young drawing fouls, especially
Definitely.
from the 3-point line, deep two, something like that. But it's interesting with Harden. And if you ever listen to Zach Lowe, see his tweets, see his Instagram posts, Zach Lowe's kind of been breaking all of this down, and it's really good. I do recommend going to look if you haven't seen it already, but it's kind of like 50-50 with each foul call. Because, like, we've been fans of the NBA for quite some time now, and we've only seen this new system for a couple games so far. So the fouls I'm seeing, I'm just kind of like, yeah, that should probably reward the offensive player. But then at the same time, I'm like, this new rule, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure it out as well.
I think the refs are trying to figure it out still too.
Yeah, I think they're being ruthless right now, though. I'm seeing James Harden get like hit in the face, and it's like nothing.
Yeah, and it might be they might have had a meeting and they're like, we got to stop what James Harden's doing.
Yeah, they're trying to make a point. Again, that poster boy thing. I really do think that's a problem right now, and I think they're just trying to be like, well, look at what we're doing to James Harden, who's the king of drawing fouls. So don't do it.
And in a way, I'm kind of happy to see it because I hated watching Trae Young and James Harden play over the last few years, where they have an open shot and then they stop to just lean into players and try and get the foul. That's not how you play basketball. That's just kind of more like finding a loophole in the system.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do think the rule was needed, but I'm surprised to see it hasn't affected players like Joel, who really relies on the line as well. Last night, he shot 15 for 17 from the line. I mean, he got there often and made them.
Yeah, and I think it seems like it's affecting guards more that drive in. The centers, I guess they get hacked when a center gets hacked, they get hacked,
Yeah, and
which might be the
it
difference.
was definitely a guard driven rule for sure.
And then also with that too, I haven't been happy with refs so far. I know in the Sixers game yesterday,
It was
they
brutal.
they teed up Embiid for talking to himself after scoring a bucket. So I don't know how I like these refs right now.
Yeah, as soon as he dunked it, I was with someone at the game, and I was just like, yeah, that he's gonna get a tech right now. And then they blew the whistle. Like I could just tell. Like it just seems like at these certain point of the games, the refs are just like, let's stop the game. Tech, you can't be loud anymore. But then, it'll be a different circumstance. Say in the first quarter, if Embiid did that in the first quarter, they would have just been like, oh, okay, yeah, he's just hype. Like it's just tough.
And that's not fair to players. I thought Embiid was going to get ejected too. He got into a little pushing thing with Josh Jackson where
Yeah.
Jackson pushed his hands around, and I think they would have gave him a tech if he didn't already have one, and if the first one wasn't controversial. But they didn't want to eject Embiid in front of the home fans because there would have been big issues.
Yeah, they would have had a hard time getting out of the parking lot. But I think I think it was only because Josh Jackson initiated it. But we're a little bit off topic here.
Yeah,
We'll
definitely
circle.
off
We
topic.
could talk about the Sixers game all day. It was such a fun game, such a fun night. First game I've been to this season. I hope to go to a couple more. But yeah, what's your first all disappointing team?
So I had Harden also, so I'll move on to my second
Okay.
here. The second one I had was Kyle Lowry.
Wow.
Now we talked about Kyle Lowry the last episode, how yeah, he wasn't shooting good, and we don't expect him to shoot a lot of shots, but he brings a different impact out there that is kind of unmatched. But since then, Kyle Lowry still isn't shooting a ton of shots, but he's just been missing all his shots. He's one of the worst shooters this year so far. He hasn't gotten 10 points this year yet.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I definitely expected Lowry to regress not only because of age but because of the role. But I didn't think he was going to be struggling this bad. And yeah, is Lowry going to have these games where he puts up 20 points and stuff? Sure, like those are going to come along. But yeah, as of right now, he is off to a very rocky start and definitely deserves to be on this list, even though I did not mention him on mine.
He missed a couple games too, but his shooting splits in the 3 games he played 3 for 8, 4 for 11, and 1 for 8. So, one, he's not shooting a lot of shots in this Heat offense, and number two, he's just been missing his shots.
Yeah, yeah, totally. He's getting good looks. He's missing them. I've seen, I believe, 2 quarters of a Heat game, but what I saw, Kyle Lowry just didn't look good. And he's doing other things. Like, don't get me wrong, he's playmaking pretty well. He's playing decent Kyle Lowry defense for being 6'1". But yeah, I mean, that was definitely good to put him on this list because he is struggling, and we are disappointed and want to see him bring it back up.
Yeah, definitely. Who's your second player, Joe?
I got Russell Westbrook.
Westbrook, I think at first I was going to have, but I decided not to because he's had a few good games since then. Why do you have Westbrook?
Just the turnovers.
Yeah, that is bad.
That is a team where they have so many ball dominant players that turnovers are naturally going to happen. Like you look at any player that has the ball in their hand for however many possessions, being the star, they're going to average a lot of turnovers. It's just how basketball works. And Russell Westbrook he had that quadruple double with 10 turnovers. Like it just can't happen. It just can't happen. And that team needs to avoid being sloppy as much as possible, and especially because they're already not getting 3-point looks, and you add into effect that they're turning the ball over how many times they are a game, which is a lot. They're just losing all this opportunity for points and defensive stops.
Yeah, and it just annoys me watching Westbrook turn over the ball so much because, as you said, they can't afford it. This is a team that can't afford it, and they don't need the playmaker. Westbrook doesn't need to go crazy trying to make all these plays. When you have a guy like LeBron out there, he needs to find another role on the team. Like, he should be a playmaker at some times, and it makes me think maybe he should come off the bench.
It's interesting because I literally was just about to talk about his potential bench role, but he's shooting 17% from three. Do you even want that off your bench? Because I feel like off the bench you need these efficient guys that are just going to come in for 15, 20 minutes a game and put up numbers.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really the bench role, and I don't know what they should do with him. It's
It's
created
tough.
such a problem.
It really has.
And the Lakers shipped off all these players to Washington in this deal that many Lakers fans hated and were underperforming players. They shipped off the three, which was Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell Pope, and then Kyle Kuzma. All three are having much better years in Washington. And it looks like the Wizards won that trade because they got rid of Russ's contract and got three players who have been productive for them that maybe they can move for something else.
Yeah, two of which that are going to be on expiring deals, which is good. So if the Wizards want to go a different direction, they
Trade
don't
them
have
for a draft pick easily.
that, or they just don't pick up their contracts come
Yeah,
off season.
yeah, definitely. So I know you just mentioned Russ is shooting 17% from three. Perfect segue into my third player on the list. Another player who's shooting 17% from three, Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I knew this one was coming, and rightfully so. Damian Lillard has been ice cold. He got clamped up by a rookie, Davion Mitchell. He just hasn't shot the ball well. Damian Lillard's gonna figure it out. He's gonna find his stroke, and Damian Lillard's gonna be great. That's just how he operates. He's just in a little cold spell right now at the start of the season, but I can imagine within the next couple of games he picks it up and we see the Damian Lillard that we all know.
Yeah, I think this one's out of probably anybody on this list. He's the one I can almost guarantee picks it back up. It's not going to stay playing this bad.
I agree. Same with my list.
And also, other people on his team have stepped up for him. They are 2-2. It's not like they're that bad. CJ McCollum stepped up and's been big for them also.
Yeah, totally.
So, moving on, who's your next player?
So I had Dame as well. So going on to my fourth player, I have Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's just got to be more consistent at the end of the day. He's got to pick it up and be that carrier for Boston to really make this playoff push. Because while they're a good team, they're no guaranteed spot in the East right now. I think the East is very competitive from 3 to 10. So, I mean, they got to pick it up. They got Jaylen Brown that needs to step up as well. But the main thing is just going to fall back on Jason Tatum. So he's really got to step up.
Yeah, I agree with that one. That's a good pick. I didn't have Tatum also, but he does need to step up. And it's been weird. Jaylen Brown has had two really good games, and he's also had two really, really bad games.
Two very bad games.
Which is kind of weird. He's very inconsistent right now, so you need him to be consistent and Tatum just to get better. My fourth player I had on my list was Kevin Porter Jr. Going into this season, I'm pretty sure I picked him as my most improved player from where he was coming from. He's about barely averaging 10 points right now and has just been not shooting good. The Rockets have looked awful on the court. I don't know. It looks like he's kind of regressed from where he left off last season when a lot of people thought he was going to be where he left off last season or better.
Yeah, I agree. And that's interesting because the disappointing players I put on were just superstars. But that is a great take, and that is probably someone who's not living up to the expectation that they had. Kevin Porter Jr. has a golden opportunity this year to prove that he's, a top however many players in the league just to get a bigger contract this offseason because he was traded for a second-round pick to get to Houston at the end of the day.
Yeah, so Houston definitely won the trade, even...
Yeah, but he's been undervalued is my point.
Yeah, I agree, for sure, there.
So going into my last one, I couldn't really find a center to put on this list, so I just picked another big dude. I picked the other Porter Jr., Michael Porter Jr.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about him.
He got paid to shoot, and he's not shooting the ball well at all, and he's not shooting many attempts. It's very confusing, and yeah, they're lacking their point guard, Jamal Murray, but it is confusing to me.
Yeah, he definitely needs to step up. A lot of people thought he'd maybe have a really good year, make his first All-Star game this year, and got paid to do that, and not so far, not looking that great.
Yeah, and again, as we've said with all these players, we're only 5 games in. Things can change.
Yeah, for sure. Then my last player on my list, I went with this one, and hear me out on this. I went Joel Embiid.
Oh,
This
man.
is not because he's been playing bad this year. I'm just disappointed in him for one reason only, and that's that he didn't get surgery to repair his torn meniscus in his knee. I think that should have been addressed in the offseason. And then the other day, he's coming out to the media saying that he's playing through all this pain and complaining about that. He's like, the team needs me. I think the team needs him to go get healthy and get this fixed because I don't want midseason, say Ben still isn't back and Embiid's not out there. I think we could survive without Embiid for a couple weeks now. I don't want to wait till when it's important and too late.
Yeah, I think if we look back on this in 5, 6 months when the playoffs start picking up and the competition's getting crazy, we're going up against whatever seed we have to go up against in the first, second round, and we lose Embiid. I mean, that could be detrimental to our whole entire season. So I don't know if he's disappointing, but that thing that he did with not getting surgery definitely is a disappointment. But his play, as far as what he's doing, has been
His
great.
play's been great. He's been fine, but someone like Embiid, he's gotta fix his off the court injuries, and this is a situation where he can treat it, he can get help,
Yeah,
and he's choosing not to do that. And as a Sixers fan, that's disappointing me right now.
yeah. And I think that was a interesting take to wrap this up. And we have one last segment we just want to talk about for a couple minutes here before we finish, is the rookies that we've been impressed with. And I'll just throw out a name. I don't have any written down or anything, but Jalen Green's been fun. And we talked about it earlier today. His shooting splits are god awful. He looks very bad. But his dunks, like, I didn't know he could fly like that. And I've been watching him since he was in high school.
He looks like Anthony Edwards right now to me. That's
He
kind of
really
who he
does.
reminds me of. Weird to compare him to a player who was just a rookie, but kind of looks like him. And yeah, he has been shooting bad in some games, but he had one game where he shot 8 for 10 from three.
Yeah.
He has potential.
But that's kind of how Anthony Edwards started his career, too. He was off for his first couple of games.
Yeah, and I think a lot of rookies are like that. I can see the potential in Jalen Green for sure,
Yeah.
and I'm impressed so far.
Agreed. What about you? What's a rookie that's...
I'd give one more rookie. Actually, I'll give this one. I kind of had two names I liked, but first off, Davion Mitchell. We talked about him before.
off day or off night? That's what it is.
Yeah, because they call him off night because whenever a player goes against them, they have an off night.
That's
And
one of the greatest nicknames I've
that
ever
is,
heard.
it's cool.
It
And
definitely is.
And it's been true. He's been clamping up some of the league's best players this year. And he's an exciting player to watch on defense. Going in to this season, I wasn't expecting much from him, given that De'Aaron Fox is there, but they've gave him a role to be a key defender, and he's getting minutes and looking great.
Yeah, and he's been going up... His first week in the NBA, he had to go up against Steph, Dame, and another good point guard, and he did very well against
He
them.
did his job.
He's 6'1", a little undersized, but he's holding his own.
Yeah, definitely.
And then just lastly, Evan Mobley.
That was the last name I was going to bring up, too.
Yeah, I figured you'd want to talk about him.
Yeah, he looks like he can do it all. He really looks like a do-it-all big man, and I like that. He can pass the ball, has been a great defender, shot blocking. And the shot blocking's been the big thing for me with Evan Mobley. I was not expecting that, but I've been seeing highlights and the numbers he's been putting up. He seems like he can be a legitimate player, probably even an all-star in the NBA.
Yeah, I agree. He's got the potential. He has the weapons. His wingspan's insane. He can be...
It's a 7'6" wingspan.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to have been 7'5" plus. I mean, his arms are just long. And he's got the tools to do it all. I mean, that's about all we got for today. I appreciate everyone listening. We just started uploading stuff on YouTube. I advise you guys to check that out. And, yeah, thanks for tuning in.